Again, police have called him a person of interest. Heightman did enter a not guilty plea to the charges that he used Irene's bank account and credit card.
Something happened to my sister, and the last person that I know that saw my sister was Nate. So it's very unlike my sister. She used to talk to my parents almost every day.
One of the things I really want people to focus on is Nate's story.
I'm really hoping at this point, Nathan should be feeling pretty backed into a corner. All we ask is that you speak to the police.
Almost every one of her witnesses said that they viewed her TikTok and it didn't show anything. But I have proof that it clearly does.
I can't find that, sir, you met your burden of proof to prove that an act of stalking occurred in this case.
I am searching for his missing fiance, and because I made a promise to Irene's family, who is my family now too, that I won't stop searching until we bring her home and she has answers. I think he is worried that we're closing in on him by sharing Irene's stories.
If you have any information on the disappearance of Irene Gakwa, you can call the Gillette Police Department, the number on your screen.
On February 24th, 2022, a father in Nairobi opened WhatsApp and saw her daughter's face. Her short hair, usually neatly braided, was rumpled. Her smile was smaller than he knew it to be. He teased her, told her she looked tired and hungry. They talked about Christmas. She was supposed to come home. He told her he would buy the ticket himself if she couldn't afford it. She smiled. They said goodbye. The call ended. He never saw her again. Today on Dark Echoes 254, we are uncovering the disappearance of Irene Wairimu Gakwa, a Kenyan missing nurse student who vanished from a remote Wyoming town in late February 2022, whose digital life was dismantled piece by piece in the days after she was last seen, whose money was stolen, whose voice was erased, and whose family, sitting thousands of miles apart across 2 continents, is still waiting for answers 4 years later. Before we begin, like, comment, share and subscribe to Dark Echoes 254 as we uncover the chilling story of Irene Gakwa. Dark Echoes 254. To understand what was lost, you have to know who Irene was before any of this. Irene Wairimu Gakwa grew up on a quiet 3-acre property in the suburbs of Nairobi, Kenya. She was the youngest of 3 children, the only daughter. Her 2 older brothers were Kennedy and Christopher, known to the family as Chris. Her father, Francis Campbell, spent his career as an aircraft mechanic for American Airlines, traveling internationally to maintain planes.
My name is Francis Gakwa Campbell, an engineer by profession, and I've worked for Kenya Airways for quite some time until retirement, and I have a family, a wife, three kids, 2 boys and 1 girl.
But whenever Francis called home to say he was landing, a young Irene would rush to the airport to get there before her brothers, to be the first face he saw when he came through the gate. Francis openly admitted he spoiled his only daughter. She asked for 2 blouses once, he bought 7. But Irene gave that love directly back into the world around her. As a young girl, she cooked meals and delivered them to local orphanage. At Christmas, she insisted on buying gifts for children whose families couldn't afford them. She was deeply introverted, shy enough that her father sometimes had to remind her to go outside and get some sunlight. She was a homebody, spent long hours in her room, content in her own company. After attending an elite boarding school alongside her brothers, she took a front office position at the Nairobi Serena Hotel, one of the most prestigious hotels in East Africa. She told her father she took the job just to force herself to make friends.
She grew up normally. And as a last born, she had every bit of what she wanted, and as expected of every last born, more so when it's a girl amongst boys. She took advantage of everything, and anything she wanted, she would want 10, and then when you are willing to give 10, she would ask you for 20. And that's the way she grew up, and even the brothers were taking very good care of her. And the mother also was like, you're doing too much for this girl. But eventually we knew whatever remained in the family was purely hers.
But Irene had larger ambitions. She wanted a career where her gentle, giving nature could actually matter. She wanted to become a nurse. By 2019, her two older brothers had already built lives in the United States. Kennedy had become a pharmacist. Chris, a psychiatric nurse practitioner. They lived in Meridian, Idaho, a boys' suburb with a tight-knit Kenyan community. They wanted their little sister to join them. Their parents resisted at first. They worried about her quiet, introverted daughter moving thousands of miles away to a country she didn't know without a family around her. But her brothers made the case. Irene was ready. She deserved to experience life on her own terms. Her parents agreed.
There were requests from her and the brothers that she goes and join them in the US. But I kept insisting that she studies here, and then if she could go go for masters or something. But the brothers kept insisting they need her because they would monitor her better. Because there are times that what she wants, I may not know the best as of today, but the brothers will be current. And the brothers somehow convinced me to let her go.
In May 2019, Irene Wairimu Gakwa packed her bags and flew into the United States. She was 29 years old. She moved in with Chris and his wife Joyce Abate in Meridian, Idaho. She found work as a healthcare aide at an elderly group home. She enrolled at the College of Western Idaho nursing program. For 9 months, she shared the home with Chris and Joyce. The two women grew close like sisters. Joyce described Irene as a free spirit, caring, goofy, someone who just went with the flow. She started every morning with a cup of tea, spent evening watching Nigerian movies, and loved cooking and shopping. Everything was exactly as planned. She was building something real. Then she logged onto Craigslist. Nathan James Heightman, also known as Nate, grew up in Oroville, California. He attended Las Plumas High School. His yearbook photo shows an unremarkable young man, quiet, introverted. He left no real footprint in his hometown. People who knew him described him as a ghost. He drifted. Eventually, he ended up in Idaho. By the time Irene arrived in America, Nathan was living a largely isolated life. He was unemployed and estranged from his family. He spent most of his time playing video games and browsing online forums. He had no close cycles, no real roots in the community. What he did have was a deep fluency with computers and digital systems. He understood how data moved, how accounts were structured, how to track someone, and critically, how to erase a digital footprint. He posted a personal ad on Craigslist forum, and that is where Irene found him. In the winter of 2020, Irene Gakwa and Nathan Heightman began dating. She first mentioned him to Joyce during a girls' trip to Los Angeles the same year. She spent a lot of time on the phone with Nathan while they were away, but she didn't share many details about the relationship. Over time, Nathan was brought around the family. Kennedy and Chris observed him carefully. What they saw was not reassuring. They found him controlling, distant. Neither of them had a good feeling about the relationship. On July 25th, 2020, Nathan texted Kennedy directly, asking for his blessings to give Irene a pre-engagement ring. Kennedy's response was firm but measured. Don't rush it. Then came the first concrete warning sign. In July 2020, Irene's family discovered that Nathan had used her credit card without her knowledge or permission to purchase a plane ticket for himself. Police were called. Nathan told them it was a misunderstanding. Irene, who was forgiving by nature, chose not to press charges. The relationship continued, but it was never stable. The couple broke up multiple times. Irene's parents were not fond of Nate. He was unemployed. He was living off her money. Her parents had genuine concerns about who this man was and what he represented in their daughter's future. After one breakup, they were relieved. They hoped it was over. Irene quietly reconciled with Nathan, but she did not tell her family. She was afraid of their disapproval, afraid they would be disappointed. So she kept the reconciliation a secret from the people who loved her most. This mattered because from that moment forward, the family's understanding of Irene's relationship with Nathan was built on incomplete information. In the summer of 2021, Nathan told Irene they were moving. Irene told her brother Chris she was heading to Arizona. It was warmer there, she said. A fresh start. But it was a lie. And it was not her lie. Nathan had encouraged her to deceive her own family about where they were going. Nathan pushed her to tell her brothers Arizona so they would know she was in Wyoming. The couple moved to Gillette, Wyoming, a coal mining town in the northeastern corner of the state, remote, flat, cold for much of the year. Nathan purchased a 3-bedroom house at Pathfinder Cycle in northern Gillette. He was employed barely as an at-home tech support worker. Irene transferred her nursing studies to Gillette's community college and started over in a town where she knew no one. She did not know a single person in Gillette outside of Nathan. In January 2022, 1 month before Irene vanished, Nathan drove her car to a dealership in Gillette. They sold her car, a silver Acura, her last independent means of transport. She was now entirely dependent on Nathan for transportation, for access to the outside world, for everything. Neighbors who lived near the house on Pathfinder Cycle would later tell investigators that they almost never saw Irene outside, and when they did see her, she was always walking a few paces behind Nathan, eyes down, not beside him, but behind him. Despite the isolation, Irene kept her family close over the phone. She video called her parents in Nairobi almost every single day. She made trips back to Idaho in the months before she disappeared. She was present in her family's lives even from a distance. The last time her siblings saw her in person was Thanksgiving 2021. The family gathered at Chris' house in Meridian. They ate, they talked until late into the night. That was the last time Kennedy, Chris, and Joyce ever saw her in person. February 24th, 2022. Francis Campbell in his living room in Nairobi. His daughter's face appears on his phone screen via WhatsApp. He notices immediately that she looked tired. Her hair, usually neat, is ruffled. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes the way it normally does. He teases her, tells her she looks hungry. What Francis does not know, what he has no way of knowing, is that Irene is not calling from Texas as she has told him. What he also cannot see is what is happening on the other side of that camera lens. The call ends. Irene Wairimu Gakwa was never seen or heard from by her family again. February 25th, the day after the final video call, Nathan Heightman walks into a Walmart in Gillette. He buys a shovel, waterproof work boots, a pair of work pants. He pays using Irene's Visa card. The total $36.90. On the same day, February 25th, Irene's banking password was completely changed. Her primary Gmail account is deleted. Her Google location history, every ping, every movement, every digital trace, erased. February 28th, a text arrived on his father's phone from Irene's number. Dad, I dropped my phone in the water and now the microphone doesn't work. That is why there can be no more video calls, the message explains. March 3rd, another text. She has moved to Texas. She was unhappy in Wyoming. She is starting fresh somewhere new. Francis Campbell knew his daughter's voice, even in texts. Irene always wrote to her family in natural blend of English and Swahili, full of rhythm of how they actually spoke to each other. The messages were different, entirely in standard English, not a single word of Swahili.
The message I got was her phone, her microphone, has somehow when the phone dropped in water, the communication could not be done verbally. And so I understood that maybe the day after tomorrow or the day after, maybe in 3-4 days, she would have a phone and we would communicate, but never came to be.
Kennedy said it later. It read like someone was using Google Translate to imitate her. Chris received a separate text around the same time. Irene said she was going to change her phone number. He texted back, that doesn't make sense. If the microphone broke, just buy a new phone. No reasonable response came.
Before I went to bed, I just decided to text her, hey, how you doing? It's been a while, I haven't talked to you. How's everything? How's school? And she texted me back, but everything was in English, you know. And she said she was good, and school was going well, and she was thinking of switching her, changing her number. And that didn't make any sense. It's actually cheaper for her to stay on the family plan because she was only paying like $25 for her bill. So why would you change to a more expensive plan?
March 7th, Irene's phone pings a cell tower for the final time. The tower is in Ghana Lake Road, a stretch that runs north from Gillette into rural areas near Highway 59, oil and gas sites, and the Rawhide coal mine. That is the last known location of Irene Gakwa's phone. March 8th, her WhatsApp account is deleted. March 9th, the final message reaches Francis from her accounts. March 10th, her phone number is deactivated, no further trace. The financial crimes were equally methodical. Between March 1st and March 19th, Nathan transferred $2,666 from Irene's checking account into his own via Zelle. 5 transfers of $500 plus a final transfer of $166. He made 16 separate unauthorized purchases in her credit cards, totaling $3,330.65. Every single transaction was traced to an IP address associated with Nathan Heightman. The Gakwa's family share a cell phone family. When Irene's brother could no longer reach her, they looked through her call records. They found a number she had dialed repeatedly. They called it. That is how they learned their sister had been living in Wyoming, not Arizona. They contacted Nathan. He told them Irene had moved out 2 weeks earlier. She came home from dinner one night, he said, packed her clothing into 2 black plastic trash bags, got into a black SUV with someone named Marco. He also admitted without being pressed that he had withdrawn money from her account. He said he had done it to force her to contact him if she needed anything. The brothers made the drive from Idaho to Wyoming. On March 20th, 2022, they walked into the Gillette Police Department and reported Irene missing. An officer spoke with Heightman the same day. The brother asked Nathan to hand over Irene's belongings. He refused. They specifically requested her Kenyan passport, a document she would absolutely need if she had left the country as he claimed. he declined to provide it. When police reached the house, they found what Nathan's story could not account for. Irene's clothes were still there, her shoes, her passport, her cats, everything she would have needed to survive, left behind in a house she allegedly chose to walk away from.
That to send the cops to go check on her. So the address that we had for Arizona, we sent the police there. They went and did a check, and she wasn't there.
Irene had actually moved to Gillette, Wyoming with her boyfriend at the time.
They went and checked, and the boyfriend was there, and the boyfriend told the cops that she had moved out like about 2 weeks ago with like 2 plastic bags of clothes and got in a black SUV and left town.
Christopher says that
April 10th, 2022, the Gillette Police Department issued a public statement. Detectives have already executed approximately 24 search warrants. Digital evidence, including location data, is being analyzed. The department confirmed Irene was missing under suspicious circumstances. Inside Gillette, something else is building. A local woman named Stacy Costa begins organizing. She gathers other women from the community. They launch a website, whereisirene.com. They print shirts that read, "Where is Irene?" They host weekend search parties, map the areas they've covered so they don't repeat grounds, and canvass the neighborhood asking permission to put up missing person signs.
Irene lived in this area, and the one thing we want to make sure of is that we don't miss anything.
They gathered outside Nathan's house at Pathfinder Cycle. They chanted, "Nate, where's Irene?" Back in Nairobi, Francis Campbell watched the demonstration via video call. Nathan watched too, and he responded by filing a protective order against Stacy Costa in Campbell County Court. He claimed her social media posts and public activity constituted stalking. The judge reviewed the case, then addressed Nathan. "I can't find that, sir. You met your burden of proof to prove that an act of stalking occurred in this case." Costa walked out of that courtroom and went straight back to searching.
Just trying to use the courts against me to shut me up.
Almost every one of her witnesses said that they viewed her TikTok and it didn't show anything. But I have proof that it clearly does.
I can't find that, sir, you met your burden of proof to prove that an act of stalking occurred in this case.
Today is July 3rd, 2022. It is 128 days since Irene went missing. Friday and Saturday were very eventful days. We hosted our candlelight vigil, followed by our second search, and then our peaceful protest in front of Irene's home. Now that is an interesting story. You see, you have a man who is hiding in that home, refusing to cooperate with police on his missing girlfriend, but he actually had the nerve to call the police on us because we were disrupting him. Unfortunately for him, though, his neighbors are in support of us. And because we are not breaking the law, they didn't tell us to leave. They actually said so long as we kept it peaceful, we could stay as long as we wanted.
Irene's brother drove to Wyoming multiple times. They visited morgues, hospital, homeless shelters. They asked law enforcement whether Irene has enlisted in the US military, an idea she had briefly considered at one point. Every lead went cold. Police were not only searching the land, they were tracking Nathan's movement through his own digital data. Investigators reviewed his location history and identified a significant change in his behavior in the weeks after Irene's vanish. Nathan Heightman was, by every account, a homebody. He rarely went anywhere, but after February 24th, his phone data placed him in rural areas, industrial zones, oils and gas sites, and parks he had no history of visiting. And there were gaps, periods where his phone appeared to be entirely powered off, stretches of unencountered time with no location data, no signal, just nothing. Then there was a drum. Neighbors who lived near the house of Pathfinder Cycle reported seeing a fire burning in Nathan's backyard, burning inside a heavy metal drum around the days Irene disappeared. In May 2022, Gillette police issued a public appeal. They asked the community for any sightings of a silver gray Subaru Crosstrek with Idaho's license plate, a vehicle registered to Nathan Heightman that may have appeared in rural or industrial areas of Campbell County between February 24th and March 20th. They also asked for information about 55-gallon metal drum that may have been burnt or abandoned somewhere in the county. As of 2026, that drum has never been found. The shovel Nathan purchased at Walmart on February 25th was recovered during a subsequent search. Court documents describe it as having grime on the blade, possible burn residue, a dark, oily substance in the handle. On October 13, 2022, Gillette police and the FBI executed a search of Nathan's house that lasted nearly 8 hours. Cadaver dog handler entered and exited the property multiple times. FBI agents brought the lights and equipment. Investigators spent significant time in the garage. Multiple cardboard boxes and plastic bags of evidence were carried out and placed into vehicles. The search warrants were sealed. No charges related to Irene's disappearance have ever been filed. A Texas address surfaced in public records, listed as Irene's residence as of April 2022, 2 months after she vanished. Police investigated the address. They found no connection between Irene Gakwa and anyone living there.
When it was winter out, a lady sent me a message and said, hey, now that the snow is here, there's this, never saw it before, but there's a weird barrel on my property. Drove out there, got pictures, GPS pinned it, sent it to the police.
The FBI agents have put out a box.
Police and the FBI agents scouring Heightman's home, bringing in their own cadaver dogs one after another, paying close attention to a spot in the garage and a forlorn flower bed visible from the street.
The police and the FBI are acting on sealed warrants, so nobody has any idea what prompted that search, what tip came in, or what evidence encouraged the police to come do that thorough search, because that was their second time at the house.
On May 10, 2022, the Gillette Police Department arrested Nathan James Heightman. He was charged with 5 felonies, 2 counts of theft, 1 count of unlawful use of credit card, and 2 counts of crimes against intellectual property for deleting Irene's Gmail account and changing her banking password. In June 2022, he appeared in court and pleaded not guilty to all 5 charges. His attorney, Stephen Titus, entered the plea on his behalf. Nathan was released on $10,000 cash bond for over a year while Irene's family searched and waited. Nathan walked free. While incarcerated at the Wyoming Medium Correctional Institution in Torrington awaiting trial, Nathan Heightman wrote a letter. In it, he described being moved 3 times since arriving in the facility. He wrote that there were reportedly a bounty on his head placed by fellow prisoner who knew who he was. But he wrote that his first cellmate knew who he was before he said a single word. His second cellmate the same. The story of Irene Gakwa had made national and international headlines. People inside the prison had seen the coverage. He was held in isolation. He wrote that he wanted to be moved to general population. He also wrote that losing everything at the age of 40, his house, his possessions, his freedom, felt like watching a train wreck while being tied down, unable to stop it. His public defender, Dallas Lamb, later referenced the bounty during sentencing hearing. He attributed it to the media attention the case had received. States, national, international coverage had made Heightman recognizable inside Wyoming prison systems. In November 2023, while Nathan was still at the Torrington facility, the Torrington Police Department opened a separate and unrelated investigation into him for an unknown incident during his incarceration. He was subsequently transferred to the Wyoming State Penitentiary in Rawlins, the state's maximum security facility. The nature of the Torrington incident was never publicly disclosed. The police chief stated at the time that once the investigation was complete, it would be submitted to the Goshen County Attorney for review and possible criminal charges. In 2023, Nathan filed an appeal of his sentence to the Wyoming Supreme Court. Then, before the court could rule on it, he withdrew the appeal. Shortly after, he appeared before the court and entered a charge of plea. Nathan Heightman pleaded guilty to 3 of the 5 original felonies. He admitted to illegally transferring $2,666 from Irene's checking account into his own via Zelle. He admitted to making 16 unauthorized purchases on her credit cards totaling $3,230.60, including the Walmart shovel, boots, and pants. He admitted to deleting her Gmail account. In court, when James Michael Coercive asked him directly whether he had authorization to access her account, he was not in direct contact with her. It was a cold plea, no sentencing recommendation from either the state or the defense. The judge could impose anything up to 23 years in prison. His bond was revoked immediately. Nathan Heightman was escorted from the courtroom in handcuffs. On June 14, 2023, Judge Coercive sentenced Nathan Heightman to 3 to 6 years in Wyoming State Prison. He maintained his innocence. He denied any involvement in Irene's disappearance. In March 2025, Nathan Heightman was granted parole. He had served less than 2 years of his sentence. Irene's family was not notified. Kennedy Wainaina discovered the parole eligibility date the way you discover something no one thought to tell you. He happened to check the Wyoming Department of Correctional Offender locator online. The date was listed March 28, 2025. He called the Gillette Police Department. He called the Campbell County Attorney's Office. He was told matter-of-factly that Heightman had already been paroled and was out. As of 2026, Nathan Heightman lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming, under supervised parole. His parole does not expire until 2031. He has never been charged with Irene's disappearance. He has never told anyone where she is.
Money. Heightman appearing in court on those charges, shocking Irene's family by changing his plea to guilty.
It was tough. When I walked in and I saw him, I wanted to throw up. You know, just to see him, I was just disgusted.
The judge revoking his bond, Heightman now waiting for sentencing in